Chapter 4, pages 125 to 133. Huntington's disease is a progressive genetic disorder characterized by abrupt involuntary movements and profound changes in mental functioning. The harmful allele, two or more different versions of a gene, is dominant. Certain neurons in the striatum, a part of the basal ganglia, are poisoned by the Huntington protein they make and die. As more and more die, the symptoms worsen. Harmful dominant alleles are not common because the carrier usually dies before passing on. Huntington's alleles does great harm after being passed on. Children of a person with the disease have a 50% chance of getting the disease if they inherited the abnormal or normal allele. Nancy Wexler watched her mother die from the disease and led a team to discover the Huntington disease gene. PKU is an inherited disorder of protein metabolism in which the absence of an enzyme leads to a toxic buildup of certain compounds, causing intellectual disabilities. A destructive process can also take place in the brain because of the lack of a functioning protein. In these cases, the gene is recessive. Only people who inherit two non-functioning alleles will have the disorder. People with PKU lack a protein that breaks down the amino acid in many foods. Without a functioning version of the protein, or excess phenylalanine builds up in the blood, and result is that brain cells die and mental functions falter. The discovery of PKU marked the first time a genetic problem was associated with a mental disability. Early detection is important because simply reducing the amount in your diet prevents brain impairment. The harmful effects of inheriting two PKU genes depends on the presence or absence of phenylalanine in the diet. Genes that affect sensory systems can have a strong effect on behavior. One more exception to the rule that individual genes can only have a small effect on behavior. Cases in which an allele makes a protein that is vital for some sensory processes such as hearing and vision. Every one of our sensory cells makes several highly specialized proteins that allow it to detect that physical events around us. Different proteins to detect heat, cool temperatures, or damage to the skin, and send signals to the brain. Cells in eyes make special proteins to detect light. Some proteins are specialized to respond to lights of particular colors. Vision and color blindness. A special protein made in the eye distinguishes green from red light. Some people don't have a functioning allele for this protein. 1 out of 11 human males do not make this protein, so they cannot tell red from green. More common in males because the gene is on the X chromosome and males only have one. So the males only receive one allele for that particular gene. If allele does not make a functioning protein, there is no other X chromosome to compensate. For ears. Ears use more than 100 different genes to work properly. In any individual inherits two dysfunctional alleles for those genes, that person will be born deaf. Most cases of inherited deafness are the result of recessive genes. A child with two deaf parents usually has normal hearing. If parents carry two dysfunctional alleles for two different genes, the offspring will inherit one functional and one dysfunctional allele for each of the two genes. Will have each of the proteins needed to hear. The kids will then carry the recessive alleles for deafness in two different genes and can pass these on to their kids. Simple gene examples do not shed much light on how genes affect most behavior, including complex behavior like language, athletic ability, and artistic expression. Single genes cause very few of the behavioral disorders that plague humans, no matter what we read or watch. Are we controlled by our genes? Studies claim that genes are responsible for some type of human behavior. Reports of genetic breakthroughs are usually premature. Genes really do influence alcoholism, schizophrenia, depression, sexual orientation, habits, tics, and autism. But no one gene can be responsible for all these behaviors. Many genes at work, and each changes the possibility that a person will show a particular behavior. If we get just one of these genes, the odds of avoiding this disorder are good. If we get several genes and hit an activation trigger, they will most likely develop. Only compulsively hair pulling has been proven to be caused by one gene. Scientists look for one of the many genes involved in the behaviors. Several genes may increase the probability to develop behaviors. Multiple gene effects on behaviors. Twin studies confirm a genetic contribution to schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a disabling mental disorder characterized by hallucinations, delusions, disordered thinking, and emotional withdrawal. It's a universal human disorder. About 1% of the human population will show signs. It's inherited. The closer you are related, you are most likely to show signs. Confounding variables are two variables that change together, making it difficult to show which one is at work. And people who share similar genes tend to share similar environments. We don't know if it is the shared genes or the shared environment that makes relative of individuals with schizophrenia more likely to develop the disorder. Twin studies is the study of identical twins used to estimate the heritability of certain traits. Most common way to tease out the confounding variable shared by relatives. Monozygotic twins, or identical twins, are twins derived from a single fertilized egg, always the same sex, and share all of their genes. Dizygotic twins are fraternal twins, non-identical twins, twins derived from two separate eggs, more like brother and sister, siblings, share half their genes. Studies of these twins shed light on the nature versus nurture effects on the individual for physical traits. Monozygotic twins are always the same, while dizygotic are more similar. Even in behavior, monozygotic twins act more alike than their dizygotic twins counterpart. Concordant is referring to any trait that is seen in both individuals of a pair of twins, and discordant is referring to any trait that is seen by only one individual of a pair of twins. Monozygotic twins are more likely to be concordant than dizygotic, which are more because they are more closely related. Heritable. A trait that is influenced by one or more genes inherited from one's parents. A trait could be physical or behavioral. Heritability is a statistical estimate of the extent to which individual differences in genes in a population contribute to the individual differences in a trait. It's a statistical estimate of what percentage of variation for that trait is caused by the various genotypes. There are several things that heritability does not mean. It is, if the heritability estimate for schizophrenia is 0.06, that means that about 60% of all variability in schizophrenia in the population is due to the variability in the genes of that population. Heritability is not 0.60 estimate does not mean that 6% of the population has schizophrenia, only about 1% have it. A heritability estimate of 60% does not mean that 60% of all of the people who have schizophrenia are that way because of genes, while the other 40% have schizophrenia because of non-genetic factors. Heritability estimates only tell us about populations of people, not the individual person.